So today I'm going to be talking about the French Revolution. The French Revolution started about the late 18th century, and one of the main causes for the French Revolution was that France was bankrupt. They had no more money, and so they decided that they were going to tax the poor people. And the poor people made up most of the French population, so when they taxed them, they became poorer and poorer and poorer. Another reason was the bad weather. They had no crops, no harvest, and even if there was a crop or harvest, the people were too poor to buy anything. So those are like the two main problems that started the French Revolution. Going along with that, there were Enlightenment thinkers, and they would start to write stories that were against the king, against nobility, and against the church. And they were called Grub Street hackers. And what they did is they wrote these stories, and the poor people would go out and they would read them, and they'd have the Enlightenment ideas in their head, and they were starting to be against the king and all that stuff. So then the king was called a States General, and that's made mostly of three parts: the clergy, the nobility, and everybody else. And the clergy and the nobility, they had kind of the same ideas and the same thoughts, and that's 2/3 of all the votes. And then everybody else, they were against the king and the nobility and all that, so they were on two separate sides, and the clergy and nobility took 2/3 of the vote, while everybody else only had 1/3. And the clergy and nobility were only 2% of the whole population in France at the time, so that makes everybody else 98%, which made the votes totally unfair and really whacked up. So what they did is that other group of people decided to make the tennis court, and that tennis court created a Durham Act, which was a whole list of rules that were based on Enlightenment thinking and ideas. So that whole thing started, and everybody was against the king and against nobility and against church. And so they had the whole revolution, and then they decided to kill the queen and the king, and so many people died. And then Napoleon comes in and takes power, and then we'll get to that later. So how this was different from the Haitian Revolution was that the Haitian Revolution, they were all upset because they thought that their social ranking was messed up. So they thought the Grand Blancs thought that they were the highest of the high, but they were still upset because they thought that the white people in France were higher up than they were. And then after that was the colored free people, and they thought that, oh, the white people who are poor think that they're better than us, which wasn't true because they were richer. And then the Petit Blancs, who were the poor white people, said, we have to be above colored people, and the slaves were, of course, at the bottom, and they said everybody should be free. So that's kind of what started the Haitian Revolution, was that they thought that the whole social system was just out of whack, and everybody thought that they should be higher than everybody else. One similarity about that was that they both had the Enlightenment thinking on their side. All of them were upset, and they all agreed that the Durham Act was the correct way to go. So that's basically the biggest differences. So now, do I think that the French Revolution was a success or failure? Because the French Revolution ended with Napoleon taking over and becoming another absolute leader, I don't think at that time it was good. But because French people now are under a democracy and they have a good government that's based on the Durham Act, I think that after a while, so now it was good, but back then it was really bad because they just fell back into power. And how does this all relate to modern day? Well, the Durham Act now is pretty much a big part of how everyone thinks, and especially in America, we all kind of think that the Durham Act is the right way to go, and that's how people should live their life. So the Durham Act is one of the biggest parts in the modern day, but the revolution, before the revolution, it's not anything close to what it is now. So thanks for watching. That was the French Revolution.